Hello everyone! Today we're gonna talk about my 10 favorite movies of 2020, a very weird and often tragic year. In 2020, I found that watching movies allowed me to cope to a certain extent with the madness that was happening outside. And today I'm gonna share with you the films I've enjoyed the most during this period. Now I know some of you will want to get to my rankings straight away, so if you want to, you can skip ahead to this timestamp in the video to get to those rankings. But before that, I actually want to cover two more things with you guys. The first is a thank you message, and secondly, I want to share with you how I rank these movies and my scoring criteria. First things first, whether this is the first time you're watching my videos or you've been with me since I started the channel a few years ago, I just want to say a huge thank you. Thank you for sharing your time with me, every like, every share. It means a lot. And thank you to everyone who's subscribed. I'm very grateful for your trust. Thank you also to everyone who left a comment on my videos. Special shout out to those who gave me constructive feedback on the channel. It's because of your input that I'm constantly trying to improve the content on here. And it's also because of you that we managed to hit 1,000 subscribers in 2020. So I'm very proud of that, and it's all because of you. So look forward to more, and once again, thank you. Now on to the scoring criteria. 2020 will always be known as the year of the coronavirus, and a bunch of big movies were delayed because of the pandemic. Nevertheless, I still managed to watch 73 movies this year. How did I choose my favorite ones? Well, I generally have 3 scoring criteria, and those are filmmaking quality, emotional impact, and rewatchability. I have great respect for the work that filmmakers do, and filmmaking quality is how well I believe a film is made, from the quality of its dialogue and acting to the cinematography and sound editing. Emotional impact is essentially how strongly the film made me feel. Did the film make me laugh, cry, ponder life, or all 3? Finally, how rewatchable is the film? If my friend asked me to rewatch a film again in a cinema, how likely would I be to say yes? So those are the 3 ways I score my movies, and just to clarify, all of this is my subjective opinion. So if you want to chime in on your favorite movies of 2020, then drop a comment in the comments section below. Alright, now that we've gotten the scoring criteria out of the way, it's time to rank those movies. I have 3 honorable mentions this year, and these are movies that I did enjoy and I do want to say a few words about. It's just that there were 10 movies that I thought were just a little better. My honorable mentions are The Painter and the Thief for its raw display of compassion and its portrayal of this unconventional relationship. Tenet for its spectacularly ambitious concept and mind-bending story structure, and The Trial of the Chicago 7 for its superbly written script and very timely subject matter. At number 10 on this list is A Son. This is a Taiwanese movie directed by Cheng Mong-hong. A Son, or Yangguang Puzhao for my Mandarin-speaking friends, was completely invisible for the first 11 months of 2020 despite being on Netflix, and it suddenly got a ton of attention when a critic from Variety said it was his favorite movie of the year. This film was really a surprise, not just because everyone only found out about it recently, but also because it was more unpredictable than I thought. There are elements of the film that deals with crime and the criminal world, and in movies like this, there are certain things that tend to happen and I thought would happen for sure. But it didn't happen, and I found that refreshing and relieving at the same time. This is partly to do with the tone of the film, which is mostly very somber and serious like any other family drama, but also has some scenes of dark comedy, which actually worked really well with the serious scenes. This is great work by the director Cheng Mong-hong, who also co-wrote the film. Another thing I loved about The Son is that it comments on how parents can treat different children differently, and how recognition and love works in some parent-child relationships. I suspect a lot of people can relate to this film on a very deep level, and if you're in the mood for a 2.5-hour Taiwanese drama, this is definitely a film that should be on your list. At number 9 is another Netflix film that I thought was incredibly powerful, and that film is The Five Bloods. Anyone who has seen a lot of Spike Lee movies knows that he is excellent at portraying the experiences of the African American community, and this film is no different. It came out at a time when racial tensions in the US were high, so talk about unfortunate but impeccable timing. The Five Bloods is the first movie to tell a story about African American war veterans in Vietnam and the challenges and trauma that real-life veterans faced during and after the war. There's a great discussion the film presents around patriotism because a lot of these soldiers were fighting for their country while at the same time their country persecuted people who looked like them, and that conflict of loyalty, morality, and justice was a very thought-provoking part of the film for me. This film definitely helped me empathize with how difficult it was to be a black man in the army at the time. The film is solidly written, acted amazingly, shout out to Delroy Lindo in particular, and it is also shot beautifully with Spike Lee communicating different time periods through his use of different aspect ratios. This film is another well-rounded Spike Lee joint. At number 8 is our first documentary on our list, and that film is Time. You could say that this is a film about trying to get an incarcerated man out of jail, but it's so much more than that. Firstly, the film looks gorgeous, not just in its use of black and white, but also the camera work and the choice of shots. I mean, I said it was a documentary, but the way the scenes are shot, it doesn't look like a documentary. It could easily be a narrative feature with fictional characters. But the fact that these are real people facing real challenges makes it all the more poignant and heartbreaking. It's a film about the cruelty of a particular criminal justice system. It's a film about perseverance and hope and channeling a negative situation into a social good. The director, Garrett Bradley, chooses to let us meet several different people, and I won't spoil who these people are, but let's just say that collectively, it really hit home how much of an impact incarceration has for the people closest to the convict. And that's why the title of the film, Time, I think is perfect. I think this is a really good film about perspective. Very often in movies and TV, we see the perspective of the cops or the robbers, but it's not often we explore the suffering of the families of the convicts, and that's part of the reason why Time is on this list. The 7th place film on my list is a very quiet movie, and that's kind of the reason it's on this list. That movie is Sound of Metal. I was astounded by this movie, and a large part of this is down to a stellar lead performance by Riz Ahmed. He was the best I've ever seen him be in a film. He is sensitive, intense, and unhinged at times, and just plays this character coming to terms with a major life event so well. I think there are great supporting performances from Paul Raci and Olivia Cooke too, but it's the way the story is told that puts Sound of Metal on this list. I love films that portray underrepresented communities in a realistic way, and in this film, we are put in the shoes of someone from the deaf community, so it allows us a taste of what it's like to go through the same painful journey as Riz Ahmed's character. The director, Darius Marder, paid a lot of attention to sound design and accessibility. A lot of the movie is filmed in near silence, or at least very little talking, and when the film was first shown in film festivals, it was shown with subtitles because that's the only way hearing impaired people can watch movies. So it really immerses you in the world of the film. It's the first time I've used that word, immerse, in this video, but it's true, and there is a very sensitive, gentle, and honest way through which the film is directed. And it's the kind of film where I got to the end and I just sat there thinking that ending was really what it needed to be. In my number 6 spot is a film that features not one, but several outstanding performances, and it's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. As someone who has done primarily theater acting, I have a soft spot for plays that are adapted to the screen. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was a vibrant treat from several standpoints. The music is slick, the costumes are on point, and I particularly like how they took full advantage of a camera to really highlight not just the inequalities between the black performers and the white studio execs, but also the positioning of the characters and the way the power shifts during their interactions with one another. Nevertheless, it is the acting that really makes this movie. Viola Davis is really gunning for that second Oscar here, and every time she speaks, I felt nothing but 110% of her character's convictions. Even then, I'd still say that the show stealer is Chadwick Boseman, who shows us why his tragic passing is such a huge loss for the world. His performance was sublime, probably his best ever. Everyone seems to be talking about that one scene which is haunting because of his passing, and I do agree that it's very chilling that his character says certain lines so close to the actual actor's passing. But his contribution to cinema is undisputed, and I'm happy that his final film was an emotional joyride from start to finish. At number 5 is the first film we've covered so far that I actually saw in the cinema. I saw it early in 2020 and it has stuck around ever since. And it's The Invisible Man, director Leigh Whannell's modern interpretation of a classic monster. This film is everything it needs to be and more. The performance from Elizabeth Moss is fantastic, as is Whannell's direction. The cinematography makes the film extra scary because Whannell really takes advantage of the subject matter. He moves the camera into spaces where there doesn't seem to be anything at all, but because we know the Invisible Man is, well, invisible, my mind automatically populates any empty room with the monster, which is the sort of brilliance you'd expect from an Invisible Man movie. At the same time, there's a lot of commentary about power and influence, and how the more powerful you are, the more influence you have in changing people's opinions. And by changing people's opinions, you change reality. And it not only has a parallel with the real world, since we live in a world full of misinformation, it also plays incredibly well in a film where the protagonist is desperately trying to convince everyone around her that she's being stalked. I think this is a film that will not be on a lot of people's lists because it's a genre film, but I am putting it at number 5. Number 4 is a movie that is really not for everyone, but is a piercing look at a subject matter many people still find to be taboo. And it's never, rarely, sometimes, always. This is an incredibly sensitive take on the very controversial topic of abortion, and writer-director Eliza Hittman does a fantastic job keeping the story intimate and honest. I was afraid this film would be preachy given its subject matter, and it's not, at least not to me. It doesn't explicitly shout out that abortion is good or bad, but just tells the story of one person's actions and the emotional trauma some people have to go through. It focuses on the what rather than the why, and while some people will absolutely hate that, I think it's actually the best way this film could have been made, and is in many ways a successful balancing act between honesty and compassion. The lead is played by Sydney Flanagan, whose performance is simply outstanding. She doesn't say much throughout the film, but you can feel her fear, uncertainty, and apprehension seep through the frame in almost every scene, and this conveys the fact that the film is not just about abortion, but about cultural differences, as well as just how dangerous it is to be a teenage girl in the world. There may be a lot of people who will dislike the film for its character actions, but for me, it's one of the strongest films of the year. Alright, we've reached the top 3, and I'm gonna continue with another film that flew way under the radar for a lot of people, and at number 3 is the 40-year-old version. From writer, director, and actress Radha Blank, this film is just pure energy and joy from pretty much start to finish. Don't let the black and white cinematography fool you. This film is colorful in its own way, with its gorgeous shots of New York City, powerful performance from Radha Blank herself, and an incredibly cool tone. To me, this film has a universal theme of chasing success in an ultra-competitive world. I mentioned in my video essay on the 40-year-old version that the film is relatable to not just artists, but also any working professional who ever felt like chasing his or her passions amounted to nothing, that they were somehow too old to start working towards what they really wanted in life, that everywhere you turn, there is someone judging you and saying no. And Radha Blank takes all of that and packages it into a story about a washed-up theater producer struggling to find the next big gig. This emotionally resonant, lighthearted, and inspiring story about chasing success is really something I would recommend to literally anyone old enough to hear a lot of swearing, and that's why it's number 3 on this list. We've gone through almost this entire list, and at number 2 is only the second movie I watched in cinemas. That film is, of course, Soul. Toy Story 4 was my number 1 movie in 2019, and it's another strong showing from Pixar in 2020. I don't need to tell you that Soul is beautifully animated. You probably already guessed that. I don't need to tell you that the score from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is mesmerizing. You probably knew that as well, especially since the protagonist in this film is played by Jamie Foxx and is a jazz pianist. What I will say is that Pixar is known for having strong world building and poignant lessons in their films, and in Soul's case, it might just be the most abstract world they've ever built, along with the most complex lesson. I do agree with the sentiment that Soul is one of Pixar's most mature movies, and it provides an incredibly touching message about living life to the fullest, and that a person's life doesn't always have to be defined by what you're best at or what your dream is. Director Pete Docter, who also did Monsters Inc., Up, and Inside Out, has come up with another home run, and Soul is an outstanding film with a message that the people in 2020 need to hear. For people of all ages, this is a highly recommended watch. My number 1 film of 2020 was a hard decision to make. I didn't say this before, but I watched a couple films on this list more than once to decide for sure where I would rank them. And after rewatching this film, I'm confident of putting it in number 1. I'll admit it's an unusual choice that many of you might be puzzled by. This is a documentary. It's not a film that I've seen on any critic's top 10 lists. It doesn't have any award buzz, and last I checked, it only has 19 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. But it is my favorite film of 2020, and coming in at number 1 is A Life on Our Planet by David Attenborough. Of all the films I considered for this list, they were all stories that boiled down to a few individual characters, or at most a community. But this film is about more than that. This film is about the future of humanity as a whole. And because of that, I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is the most important film of the year. Sir David Attenborough's witness statement is profound and pessimistic, and it's made compelling by the charm and credibility of Attenborough himself. It's also very reflective, and you feel like you're being taken on a journey through Attenborough's career, while he thinks aloud about his privileged background and how he realized our world was in danger. But the message itself is not the end of it. The film is also visually stunning. I mean, if you've ever watched David Attenborough documentaries like Blue Planet, Planet Earth, or more recently Our Planet, then you'll get what I mean when I say that the nature footage is awe-inspiring, and is really some of the most gorgeous nature photography you'll see all year. I'm a scientist by education, and watching this film, I'm sitting here thinking, are we doing enough to sustain our planet and its biodiversity? And the answer here seems to be a pretty resounding no. I mean, the world is certainly changing. There's more focus on green energy. Companies are starting to focus more on sustainability. Meat grown in a lab has been commercialized. But are we doing enough of it? That's the really thought-provoking thing about this film, and that is why the best movie of 2020, in my opinion, is A Life on Our Planet. And there you have it, my top 10 movies from 2020. I hope you've been well and you'll have an even better 2021. So let me know what your top 5 or top 10 movies are for the year in the comments below. I'll be back with another video soon, so until next time, stay safe, stay hyped, and I'll see you guys next time.